This tutorial will show you how to make a clay mermaid. If you love learning about art, hit that subscribe button and support this public school art teacher's side hustle. I am going to be working on a pretty small scale, and I am using a low-fired white clay that has to be put in a kiln. You can do this with air-dry clay and even Model Magic, and you really only need a small amount. I'm going to start by making a pinch pot, and I'm going to go kind of quick, so if you've never made a pinch pot before, check out this tutorial and it will walk you through step by step. The pinch pot is going to be the base or the rock that my mermaid is sitting on. Since my mermaid isn't actually swimming or floating, I guess I could hang her with wire, I want to give her a surface that she can rest on and doesn't collapse. Then it's time to make the mermaid tail. With another piece of clay, I'm rolling out a coil, and this is too large in proportion to the pinch pot I created, so I'm going to cut it smaller. And if you've never done coil building before, check out this tutorial. But if you've ever made a snake out of Play-Doh, then essentially you have worked with coils. I'm going to be creating a carrot shape, so kind of more of a point at the bottom and a thicker section at the top. So I'm going to attach her body or torso to the mermaid tail, and then I'm going to split the bottom into two fins. This will eventually be the fin of my mermaid, so I'm making that kind of flat, and I'm going to push in where I want it to kind of get smaller, and then it will fan out. But before I do that, I want to make sure I have a torso that makes sense to the relationship of the body that I created. A torso is the waist all the way up to the shoulders. I will be connecting the head and neck separately, and also the arms. And the beauty of a mermaid is it doesn't actually exist, so you can manipulate your proportions, but I want it somewhat humanoid. Of course, we have legs, mermaids do not, but I'm looking for kind of a triangular shape. It goes in at the waist and then broader shoulders. And again, the proportion and style and body type of your mermaid can be completely up to you. Then I'm going to roll out a coil to create my arms. And this time I do want it to be a little bit more of an even coil, a little thicker at the middle. I'm going to cut this coil in half because your upper arm is going to be, of course, thicker than where your wrist and hand are. So spoiler alert, I end up making off camera maybe 3 sets of arms. You'll see me work with 2. And then the head is going to be a roundish shape. So I'm rolling it on my canvas. And then I'm pulling a little bit down like a light bulb. You can see I'm removing extra clay. So anytime you have extra clay, just remove it, put it in a pile to reuse it or recycle it. And I'm rounding and smoothing it out so it has the look of a light bulb. It's a little bigger than it needs to be, but that's good because I'm going to create hair directly from the head itself. Now I'm going to work in 2 parts. So the fin attached to the pinch pot, and then I'll work on the torso and the head separately. So I want the curve to go ahead and be in there. And I'm going to take my needle tool and then I'm going to cut it in half, split the fin, and then shape it with my fingers. Now, don't be afraid if you mess this up. It might be good to roll out a few of these coils. They really don't take long. So give yourself permission to make a weird looking fin. And do know that it will be fragile because it's a small, thin piece of clay. And you can see I'm playing around to make sure the torso is the right size, kind of proportional, because these 2 pieces will be drying separately. So that's why the curve of the mermaid tail is important. I'm going to attach the head to the shoulders. I put score marks on the body of the top part of the fin, but I'm not going to attach the mermaid tail yet. I'm going to focus on 2 parts. So I'm score slipping and blending the head to the torso. Then I go back with my wooden tool and I add score marks so that the head is really secure. And then I'll blend with the other side of the wooden tool, a smaller wooden blending tool, or my finger to make sure they're totally connected. Because I teach in a classroom where we only have 45 minutes, I always teach score slipping and blending because we might make the head a totally separate day than we make the torso, depending on time. So I like to score slip and blend everything so that the clay is really happy and really connected. I am giving my mermaid a feminine look. So no, I am not making very detailed body parts. I'm not even going to make a face, but I wanted my mermaid to have more of a feminine curve to her. So I'm giving her a little bit more of a chest. Very simple, nothing dramatic, and I'm just going to score slip and blend that to give her more of a curve than I didn't make the first time. Now I'm going to the arms, and I'm going to roll that to scale to be proportional with the mermaid that I made. What I do is usually make the arms too long. I wrap them around the shoulders to give it a natural look. And then of course you can see that it's a little long. Now you could have elongated features and you do want your arms to be symmetrical. And I know the clay is going to pull and get a little longer and thinner as I work with it. Also, you are going to probably attach multiple arms before you get it right. Changing gears here, I'm going to dry the mermaid tail with the pinch pot, and I'm going to go ahead and attach those using the score, slip, and blend method. And then I want those to dry, not quite to leather hard, but to the point where I can do more carving and surface treatment. If your fin is very heavy, it will sink down onto your pinch pot. So you do want them to be not completely like plastic clay. You want them to set and dry a little bit before you attach them. And then you want the two of them to dry together before you attach the heavy torso. Your fin might bend at a different shape than mine. So I'm just making sure that the fin is connected everywhere it touches the pinch pot in a natural way. Let's go ahead now and score, slip, and blend the arms to the shoulders. And this is going to be tricky because it's such a small shape, and then it does dry out quickly. So you want to pose the arms the way you want them before they become more dry. Because if you try and move them once they've dried, they will crack and break. Mine do multiple times. So sure, you can fix it, but it's a little bit stressful. Dry separately before attaching the upper body to the fin and your base. Once they have reached the point where it's not leather hard, but it's more at the carving consistency, attach your torso to your base using the same score, slip, and blend method. You might notice I'm picking up the pace here just because you've seen me do this so many times before. Don't lose your body parts. Don't lose your waist. Make sure that your rear end of your mermaid makes sense to the pinch pot and doesn't become one. There should be two separate areas. The mermaid isn't sinking down and becoming the rock. And the best advice I can give is let go of what's not working. I'm going to go ahead and reattach those arms because I just was not happy with them. I think I do this 3 times before I finally get it right. I have some seashells that I thought might be fun, so I'm placing those near the arms as if the mermaid is cradling some seashells. And now I'm going to think about hair. So I'm taking my needle tool and carving in a hairline, and I'm taking my wooden tool and pressing into the forehead to separate the too large head into face versus hair. See how that reveals hair without having to score, slip, and blend a large piece? Then on the back, I'm going to add kind of like an over-the-shoulder bunch of hair. So I'm just taking scrap coils and pressing them in. Don't worry, I am going to score, slip, and blend. You could make braids. You could do a whole bunch of hair. You could give her a mohawk. You could do whatever you wanted. And I'm going to take that big clump, remove them, kind of squish them together. And then I will score, slip, and blend that massive hair. Now, once that's on there, then I can really play around with texture. You can braid and twist clay, so hair is a really fun thing that you can use. And you can also have hair going in front of the mermaid or behind. There's so much movement with the mermaid because of the fin, the hair, so really play around with the clay. If the clay seems unhappy, like it wants to break, your clay might be a little dry, so it's best to do this with really fresh clay. That includes when you make the arms, and that includes when you make the mermaid tail. Anytime you're working with coils, if it kind of breaks as you twist it, get some fresher clay. I'm using the same needle tool here to put some texture all the way around the hair, just so it's very separate from the more smooth body. And with a mermaid, texture could be really fun. I'm keeping this very simple and minimal. I'm going to keep everything almost smooth except the hair, but you could go to town with all the details with texture. So at this point, everything is attached, so you can perfect your form and you can carve texture as you are letting it dry slowly. The ribbon tool is great for shaving off small areas as your clay becomes more leather hard. And then again, like I said, you could press a scaly texture into the mermaid tail. You could really get creative with the rock, but I'm really going for a minimal style. I want to keep everything simple. So if she doesn't have a face and there's not like a clear separation between like fin and stomach, then I think it might be kind of weird to have a lot of detail and texture in the rock and the fin if there's not like a face. So I'm keeping things very simple, and I'm hoping to glaze her a really fun color and keep her kind of minimal. So we'll see what happens with that. And you can just kind of let her dry slowly. Clay is always happiest when drying slowly. And think about from all angles, does everything look the size, shape, and proportion that you want it? Really pay attention to how she is sitting on your base, because again, you don't want the pinch pot base and her body to become one. Think about, are you going to put clothes or seashells on them? Are you going to, take your arms off and reattach them? I have done that so many times. And if things aren't drying well, make sure that you store them in a bag and that you let them dry very slowly. You'll see in just a minute how clay, if it dries fast, it can be very fragile. And a needle tool is a really good tool to go back in and really refine and clean up those details. I did end up putting a little bit of a texture on my rock. I'm just taking this wooden tool and indenting to create a texture. But I think it makes sense with the tail, and I think it makes sense with the hair. And then I'll keep the body and face of my mermaid very smooth, very neutral, and just very simple. I am adding some score marks here where the arm is resting on the body and on the other arm, and adding a little bit of slip and blending it again. Because as the clay's drying, those small little areas are starting to become fragile. If you're using kiln-fired clay, you would need this to be completely bone dry before putting in the kiln. And then glazing is just one option. You could paint with watercolors, you could paint with acrylic, you could do a tempera and oil pastel resist. Do you see how she is getting a little bit more white, especially on the small areas like the hands? That's because she is getting more dry. So at this point, I need to stop working with her. She has dried up a little bit. I'm scraping just a few little areas, but clay dust is very dangerous to breathe in when it's dry, so don't get out any sandpaper or do this too much. At this point, I'm going to give her several days to get bone dry and then fire her in the kiln. After coming out of the kiln, I decided to do a cold finish. So I am using white gloss spray paint instead of glazing, and this gives really nice results very quickly. This is also great if you're using air dry clay, and there's a ton of different methods to decorating the surface of your clay that don't include glazing. So here she is with seashells attached, one solid high gloss white. Thank you so much for sticking around and making art with me. And if you're interested in more tutorials, check these out. Find me on Instagram at thatartteacher_Machado, and my website, thatartteacher.com, has full-length blog posts, student examples, and rubrics, always for free.